A very warm welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're just on time for Bottom Line KE right here on Look Up TV. Today on the program, we look at digital media. How has it affected the way in which we do our politics? Now, social media is a vast platform that can be used for good or bad. And today we want to break down and just analyze how it has impacted the way we do our politics. With me on set, right next to me, is Jaikan Sangwera. Jaikan Sangwera, karibu.
Thank you so much.
And on the far end, we have Patrick Mwenda, who is a youth leader, political analyst.
Thank you.
Karibu. Gentlemen, let's begin our conversation. Are we all on social media?
Yes, we are.
Which platforms?
Both of them. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we are there.
So we are in at least two of the main social media platforms.
Yes, we are.
Okay, and let's just go back in time and see how politicians before or any political issues were handled before the era of social media. Let's just take a look at the road that has been. Yes, Jaikan.
See, in relation to politics especially, before Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, our politicians used to rely so much on radio show talks, TV talks, okay? They used to go to meet people direct on the ground and talk to people, okay? So they had to seek these platforms or go to seek people direct on the ground to go and talk to them one-on-one. Since then, things have really changed so much, so that after the emergence of these platforms, they no longer need to go to the ground to see people, talk to them direct. They can as well, even if they go there, they can still go. They can go live and reach a wider base. Okay, so things have really changed so much, as we should dissect into.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Patrick, when you look at how when there was breaking news, then you have to run home because you hear the stories, or maybe at a restaurant because you have to get it on TV or on radio.
First of all, let me start by saying thank you for hosting me again. And probably when we try to dissect the issue of social media, it's a very broad thing that we can not dissect to go it completely. But then we have to get to a point we ask ourselves, how far has social media enabled us to evolve from one step to the other in terms of information? Because like my friend has just said, we have to agree that before, sometimes back, we really had a lot of long processes of acquiring information. But with the evolution of social media, I think everyone is able to get the information immediately after it has happened. In other words, I can call it a way of gaining information very fast, because assuming that, for example, the president addresses the nation, we do not have to wait until news are heard in the TVs so that you can get the news. Immediately he hears, there are some who even stream it live as tries to address the nation. So we're able to get information very fast, and we get the first-hand information to some extent. We don't have to get information that is so much disoriented and disintegrated into fitting the motive of the storyteller.
Okay.
But we get the first-hand information. To me, I think it's a good thing that really came to cut a lot of problems.
Okay. So, and we are a democratic nation.
Yes.
So social media is it impacting positively the democracy in this country? Because now that we have access to information and we have a voice as well. Yes, Jaikan.
As a country, since 2013, we can see that social media has really degraded our political system so much. We can see the harm it has caused since 2013, when really I can say people started using these platforms much in that election. That was a general election. Since then, we all of us know the harm on the positive side it has caused, but we must notice that social media has helped to really diversify and make politics so transparent. And as you said, you know, as citizens of the Republic of Kenya, we have a constitution which gives us a right to freedom of expression. If you look to the constitution under Article 33, it gives citizens the right to freedom of expression. And so they are free to seek information, to receive information, and to impart information or ideas, okay? But that right it has regulations. It does not extend to propaganda for war, does not extend to incitement to violence, okay, and other things. So we are citizens of Kenya. We enjoy the freedom we get, and social media happens to be that platform which gives us that opportunity to air our opinions. Yes.
You have something to add?
Yes, probably allow me to start the conversation by probably giving an historical background of what democracy entails. From the normal definition that we have is that democracy is the government by the people, for the people, and by the people.
Yes.
Ideally, what that one means is that democracy signals something that gives people a government of their own, that they elect, it serves them.
So
and
their
purely
voice
serves their
directly
interests.
reflects.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
purely serves their interests. In that case, then we probably may not go down the whole story of our democracy and how it has evolved. But then, at personal level, I would say before the evolution of social media, our democracy was ideally at stake, or probably we were having a bland image of democracy, not real democracy, because we have to ask ourselves, where did our democracy start? When we get our independence as a country, there was a lot of anticipation from our forefathers when they were fighting for democracy. And in my own assumption, I believe what informed democracy to them was the understanding that once we get democracy, that is when they get their self-governance, their own government. Because when we talk about democracy, we must attach government in it. So when we got our own governance, we were thinking of that with the acquisition of democracy, the guns are going to be silenced. There is no more guns in our country. That people will no longer die. Because
Like you'd speak your mind and it would be fine because there's a freedom of speech.
Yeah, we would still go to a point, we would have a periodical presidency. We'd go again to multipartyism, where people would hear different opinions without being interfered by anyone, because it's a democratic country. But then we ask ourselves, when we got the independence, did we really go to democracy as we pretend? Because we have got history is so much pregnant of examples that we can give about how our democracy was inserted. Because if you look back at people like Pio Kamapinto, we have Tom Mboya, we have J.M. Kariuki, they were killed specifically when they were fighting for democracy, because they were speaking out the voices that they expected to talk after democracy came our way. But then, in the process of trying to enjoy our democracy, they found their way to the grave. So ideally, when they died, very few people knew what killed them. We had a lot of rumors being spread around. People were trying to script different stories about who killed J.M. Kariuki, for example, who killed Tom Mboya, for example. People were not able to get real information. Up to date, we do not know exactly who killed Kariuki, who killed Tom Mboya. That means people didn't get information. But we now move down the line and come to the era of social media. How are people getting information? As much as we're having the political assassinations and a lot of issues that are trying again to fight democracy, we have to accept and hone the importance of social media. Its value cannot be underscored anywhere. We have to accept that indeed social media is turning tables in as much as democracy is concerned. Okay. Because social media is acting as a voice for the voiceless. People in the villages can speak their mind. People in the villages can post something and their leaders can see. They are using social media to control how the governance is taking place. Because someone who is very young, for instance, back then, youth have never been taken so much serious in terms of leadership. Because where would you go and speak? Because you could not go to a TV station and speak out about bad governance. Yeah. But today, if you are feeling dissatisfied with the kind of leadership you're having, you take to social media.
You can even just take your phone, record it, and the video could
Just
go
record
viral.
and the video goes viral. And as much as they may not give it attention publicly, they will have found what you want. So ideally, social media is to some extent giving a better way of addressing democracy, and I think it's giving a lot of impotence when it comes to growth of democracy.
Okay, Jaikan, and we're living in times when the former sports CS, Echesa, during the by-elections, when he slapped one of the IEBC officials. So we're living at a time when we're seeing things in real time as they happen. Because for as long as someone has a camera on their phones and then they have the internet, then they can easily access and disseminate information.
Which is a right thing actually to me and to all of us, because such things we wouldn't have known them in the old days when they were.
Would have had them. Did it happen? Is it a rumor?
It will be created as a rumor,
Yeah.
and some news media houses will not even air it if that person was affiliated to the government. But now, since we have that opportunity to see things as they happen down on the ground live, it is an advantage to us, okay? That and emphasizing to the point I had said that we have a right to access information so that we can condemn such activities which are there. But as you said, there is so much in that social media that is fake, okay? We have a lot of fake news in social media, and you know that what it is, fake news.
And I think we'll be coming to
Yes,
fake news
yes,
in
yes,
just a
yes,
bit.
yes.
Right now, I want us to look at leaders. So say you are affiliated to a certain leader.
Yes, yes.
You follow them on social media.
Yes.
You're waiting to see what they're going to post next on
Yes,
Twitter
yes, yes.
or Facebook. So then, do you then feel, what would I say, closer? Or do you feel like the leader is directly speaking to you?
The
You as a supporter.
Yeah, the politicians, citizens are now enjoying the right to access information from the leaders they trust, okay? Direct. Such information they couldn't have actually received before these social medias emerged, okay? And what is happening is that there is a problem between citizens, ordinary citizens, who for a very long time lacked an opportunity to have their views being represented in mainstream media, and therefore they have since found an avenue in the social media that they can follow up their leaders, that they can follow up their political agenda, and they can support their politicians the way they want in social media. And this is something that they couldn't do because, you know, politics is so diverse. So there are politicians who will never get a chance at all in media houses. Not all of them can get a chance. Few will get a chance. But majority of the politicians, since we have so many of them, will never access this mainstream media. So therefore, the opportunity of social media has made them to actually connect very well to the citizens whom they govern.
And we have someone like Miguna, who is 1,000 miles away, but his voice is very loud right here in our politics. Yeah, and looking at even the people like department, like the DCI, that have set apart specific days where they address issues from people. So someone will say, this and this happened to me, reported to the police station, nothing has happened. So just that close relationship with its people. Yes, Patrick.
Just to even support what my friend has said, there is that direct connection between the public and the leaders. So to say, on top of it, social media is a revolution in a way. It is a revolution in how do we access information. Probably I would say it is a pillar in the information. It's very, very, in the access of information, very, very essential because like we've said, just saying like we have DCI want to know about an issue that occurred somewhere. Do you use social media things to do an investigation? That is, different stories are shared and they're able to now match them together and come up with a comprehensive report on how to handle a certain situation. More to it, social media has given a voice to the young people, especially the sons and the daughters of nobody in the country, that they would never have gotten a platform to share a table with the big people and tell them the ideas, what they own. So through social media, we have very many ideas lying in the villages that were lying in the villages before. But nowadays, someone is able to even help leaders to dissect information and to know how to approach different situations given at their hand. So to me, I would think to some extent it's a solution to bridging the gap between the leaders and the community.
And its people.
Yeah.
Okay, and now let's come into the fake news.
Yes.
There's a lot of information
Yes.
that is on social media, different platforms. And you see, like, we are a media house, so we have an editorial policy, but social media is unmanned. There's no one to govern the policies. So then there's free flow of information, which could be fake, which could be sensational. So how do we then demystify that this is real, this is not?
First of all, we need to understand what is fake news. Fake news constitutes false news stories that are created, which are in a nature of sensational. They are in a sensational nature, and they are created to either degrade public figures, companies. They can degrade political movements. They have an agenda. They are created to go viral online, so that they can push that agenda, either degrading companies and such other movements that I'll talk about. So if we are not very careful with information, we can find ourselves in a very awkward position. For instance, stories are shared online, and since we read so many stories at the same time, within a short span of time, we read so many stories, we don't have a chance to verify the information, whether it is true. Okay, so therefore we develop what we can call repeated adonisia, which is that you read so many stories that you don't have chance to verify, and once you read something which is false or a lie repeated severally, may be seen to be a fact.
It.
And so therefore, that is the danger which is actually there in the social media. As we use it, I know that there is a challenge when information is dissected and written by various people, and we consume it without having a chance to verify whether it is true. So what we can do is to try and push for people to seek for the truth with regards to information shared in social media. Okay.
Yes, Patrick.
On the same issue, I think I won't say that social media is a tool that we are holding. We can use it to fire our country and blow it into proportions very easily. Because how we consume the information on social media is different. The elephant in the room as we talk is how do people interpret information shared on social media. We have different ways of interpreting information, and more often than not you find that we interpret the information depending on our motives. Is the information suiting our agenda, what we stand for? For example, if a bad information is shared about someone you perceive to be your enemy in politics, for instance, then you purely use that information to spread it a lot of other propagandas around. And the innocent members of the community now who have no touch with information and cannot really be able to authenticate the information, they will end up now using that to pin down good leaders. So at some point we may use social media to kill good leadership in the process, because we have bullies, we have all manner of information being hired through social media. I do notice that there are a lot of Seundo accounts, for example, Facebook account. We have Seundos that are used to spread information. Someone like me, my name, I may have an account under my name and still have another account under somebody else's name, imaginary name, more than 5. So if I post something, I comment with all the accounts, 100 of them, and people would think ideally the information looks true. But it's someone under one body that is propagating false information, and we end up now making the public consume the information in the wrong way, and we kill probably a good idea, or we kill a good leader through propaganda. So the biggest elephant that we should seeking to address on social media is how we consume information, and whether we can have a way of censoring what we post on social media. If we can achieve that level, that people can post authentic information and share ideas that can really be of good means to the public, then I think we can sit down and now celebrate the achievement of social media. Yeah.
Okay, and you know, it's easy for TV, radio, newspaper to censor their content.
True.
But now social media, as I say, it has made the world a global village. So there is information that is flowing freely in so many places in just a matter of seconds.
That's why I say that it can be so dangerous, and it can also be for the good. Okay, just a small one post on social media can actually alter the presidential election in a country. A small thing that you can post there can change the political narrative in a country. So we are saying people are using social media in various ways that sometimes we've said they can bully people so much. They can bully good people in the society or enterprises, okay? They can bully. And you have seen that even the head of state has actually had to move out of social media completely because of being bullied. He himself explained that he left social media because he realized that it was all about insults. And so he had to quit social media, voluntarily quit social media. We have also across the continent where the US president was forced to quit social media, although he has said that in the next 4 months he may emerge again under a different platform. But you can remember that he used social media to propagate agendas which sometimes the world or the people of America were not happy with. Yeah. Okay, so social media can be used very well, and it can also be used in a very wrong way. Here in East Africa alone, apart from Kenya, we have talked about our president being very unhappy with how social media is. And of course, citizens prefer that way. When they reach the president, they talk to him what they feel. But
they want that connection.
Yes, that
they want
connection,
to feel like their voice is being
heard by him. So in East Africa, you've seen that in Uganda, there is a problem during elections that social media platforms are shut down completely, so that until elections results are announced, presidential results are announced, or general results are announced. You've seen in Tanzania under the late president what used to happen in elections during the election time, that social media platforms were completely shut down so that they can achieve what they want first, so that they can open up.
Yeah, okay. So maybe they were fearing violence, propagation of that.
Yes.
But at the same time now, is that curtailing democracy?
That is what I'm talking about, that it is possible that, as I said, we have freedom, which is actually anchored in the Constitution. I've talked about Article 33. As long as you don't do the things which I mentioned, that you are propagating propaganda, you are doing propaganda for war, inciting people to do violence, okay, and you are not actually interfering with the rights provided for under Article 27, Clause 4, which is about discrimination to any person. And as you exercise the freedom of expression, you must never try to degrade a person's reputation in society.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we are taking a short break here on Bottom Line KE. Today's discussion is digital media and politics. What's the connection and what's the impact of digital media in the way that we do our politics? We are taking a break. Don't go too far. Welcome back. You're watching Bottom Line KE right here on Look Up TV. And we want you to engage with us in the conversation of the day. We are talking about digital media and politics in Kenya. We want to know the impact of digital media on the way that politics is done in Kenya. With me on set is Jaikan Sangwera, who is a lawyer, political analyst, and Patrick Mwenda, who is a political analyst and a youth leader. And we've been talking about how social media, it's negatively affecting the way we are democracy. I remember in 2013 elections, when Jubilee first came into power. So during those campaigns, they were very intense. And the morning of voting, the morning of elections, I remember people were saying, try look for Raila Odinga on Google. You go on Google, you write Raila Odinga. you know, you're supposed to see a Pan-Africanist, someone who fought for multipartyism. That's the information that is there. But at that time, when you Googled, it was 10 things that Raila has done, why you should not vote for Raila Odinga. Like three links, 3 different links. So that is how now, most likely from the opponents, that is how social media can be used even during times of elections. So let's just look at the animosity that it can cause, especially in a country where ethnicity is a very big problem. Yes, Patrick.
Thank you once again. Like I said earlier, social media is a tool we are holding in our hands, and more particularly the young people. It's a weapon they are holding on their hands, and they can use it to fire the country anytime they want. Because like we've just said, how has social media shaped our way of voting, and particularly how does it sell different candidates? You notice that we have different signs of information that is shared on social media. One praising, others degrading, the other part degrading an individual. So in that connection, and the one that comes out prominently is on the manner in which we sell a candidate based on tribes. We have purely used social media to advance tribal issues, and we killed a very good candidate purely based on a tribe, nothing else. So to me, I would say that social media has a great effect in terms of advancing the negative way of voting, negative way of selling individuals, negative way of how people perceive different leaders and how we carry out our elections. For instance, you notice that there are some areas whereby when we have elections, people will create online polls. And that online polls can be designed in such a way that if you are voting for someone that you want, your vote may not go through. Someone else voting for a candidate who is favorable to the design of the poll, the vote goes through. So we end up now selling
So in essence,
the wrong
it doesn't
impression.
really tell the whole truth.
It sells the wrong impression. And then who are the voters in the online platform? It may be the same person voting 100 times and sells the wrong impression to the public that, what, this guy is having a lot of votes, then he must be a good guy. Did we know that it is just 1 or 2 people who have voted all those votes, different accounts, and we end up now portraying that person as a good person, which in real sense he isn't a good person. So I will again repeat, it is a tool that we are holding on our hands, and we have to choose on how we want to use it, and we have to know what we propagate on social media. I wish that young people would wake up and use social media on the right way. Otherwise, if we don't go back to our basics, we'll blow this country out of proportion through social media.
Yes, Jack, and just looking at how social media is maybe propagating ethnicity, because when Deputy President William Ruto tweets, then when you look at the people who've responded, you're likely to find more Kalenjins than any other tribe. And the same goes for the different political leaders. So is it a platform that is encouraging us to continue being tribal?
We can't deny the fact that we are tribal as a country, and there's no problem at all for a person belonging to a tribe. And I don't think that would be a problem if I posted something on social media and people from my tribe actually preferred making comments there. The same case with what happens to these politicians, all of them. But as we've said, social media, politicians are now using it for purposes of advancing their narratives in various ways. As you have said, unless we decide to make changes to the way we do our politics, and which is not going to take just a day, it's going to take 2 days or a year. It's going to take a long time for us to make changes to the manner in which we do our politics. We shall always remain tribal in the manner in which we think, in the manner in which we do our politics, and stereotypes are there in social media so much that first of all, if you're competing with somebody, you create a narrative that that person is a so dangerous person. If he takes power, he's going to do this and that. You cause fear among the citizenry so that you scare them from even turning up to vote for in an election. Or just they turn up to just vote against that person, not because you have sold any agenda. You have just sold fear. It has been the case for a very long time in our country. But it is not only the case here in Kenya. It is also a case across the world, okay? You have seen it happening so much in United States of America that people sold agendas that caused fear to the people, especially when Donald Trump, for example, was a candidate. There were those who were accusing him of so many things, okay? And when he also was campaigning to become president, he was selling an agenda. He was selling a fear that if I take power, I won't bring back America to us, okay? It has been all along on the wrong hands, okay? Some certain class of people race shall go back to their country. So it is not only happening here in Kenya, it is happening across the world. It's not sparing those great countries around there. Here in East Africa, so much. In Africa, you can see down up to South Africa, it is a very big problem. In South Africa, for instance, you've seen what happened there in just not even 2 years ago, but even this year, there has been a very big problem there. And social media has advanced, has actually cultivated and made it very possible to make those agendas and narratives being spread so quickly and regulated. Like you said, a person has control over his account and what he's writing. It is not controlled by any other person, you see.
Sure.
But the question we should also ask ourselves, okay? Of course, the owners of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram have control in a way. The question we should ask ourselves, do we have to leave it to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram to control what is fake and what is not fake, okay? Or we as citizens have a chance to also play a role in the same
responsibility.
Yes. So unless we decide to do so, it's going to be very difficult, especially now that we are nearing the next election next year. Social media, right now we have so many bloggers emerging and just private people propagating agendas and trying to cause fear in social media. If we don't take care, we will put our country in a very awkward position. Yes.
Now that the general elections is just months away, and looking at how people operate on social media, so you follow the people that you want to follow. So you can control actually how you take in information. Because if you choose to follow a certain political leader of a certain party, so you are in line with that agenda and you follow all the other affiliates, people who are affiliated to that political leader as well. But then, so that, does this mean that when it comes to the general elections, when this leader does not become senator, governor, whatever position, so does it mean that it will shock you because you chose to control how you're going to get your information? You chose to control, I'm going to follow these specific people. So following a specific person, does that give you the true picture of what is the reality on the ground?
No, it is not the right thing to say that when you follow a certain leader, you get the information about him, or to some extent, we are losing information in the process of following a specific person. Like we said, social media is a very broad spectrum of issues that we have to put down and dissect them differently so we can understand it in a better way. Now, we're saying that how we consume the information from social media purely depend on individuals. Unless you just want to live in ignorance, that's the only time you can follow one person and want to follow his version only. Someone who is out for good leadership must not close his mind to a specific person. You should not get to a point you are closing your mind to saying that I only listen to what, just for example, what Raila says. I will choose to listen from both ends and then come down and harmonize the information and see which is right, which is wrong for me. So we should look at it, and as we move to the elections, how should people consume the information from social media? Should we choose to go one way? Of course, definitely it's a no. Because if we go one way, we are likely to raise animosity for no reasons. We are likely to raise our hatred for certain people just because we do not know what they have for us. Because we don't want to follow and know what they have for us, we just choose to go by one person. Let's just listen and make a decision. I think someone said that it is the heart of an educated mind to entertain a thought without agreeing with it. In the sense that as we consume information from social media, let's entertain any thought and listen from it. But then let's us make a wise decision. Otherwise, we'll go to an election and we choose the wrong leaders because we choose to run away from the right leaders by avoiding the information from them. Information is very key when it comes to election and how we elect our leaders into position. Because if we don't get right information, we elect leaders depending on the lies that have been sown to us through social media. Like we said, we have no single way of censoring information on social media.
True.
Someone can choose to drive on propagandas. And mark you, nowadays, any serious political party or center of politics has got specific wing for social media. You visit Capitol Hill, there is a place they have set assigned specifically for bloggers to sit down, and they combine information from across the country and know how do we tackle it now.
Yeah.
How do we tackle it? If it's a good information they have seen, for example, their opponent has heard, they must sit down and now script a different propaganda that will now counter it. If you choose to go by a certain direction and choose to follow certain person only, you would get the right information that was shared by from the first person. You only get what they have designed specifically for you to consume because they feel.
And on that, when you say that, then there are all photos each and every day. We see a lot of Babu Owino, Esther Passaris, different political leaders. Today I went to a certain school, we gave them masks. Tomorrow we met street kids and this is what we gave them. So again, these people control what they put out there.
Yeah.
They're selling an agenda. They want us to see them in a certain light. So are we just then going to take everything that they give us and say, oh, because he's been helping the whole year and the next and the next for 5 years, then he needs to go in for another 5 years.
On the same, before my friend speaks up, I have just said we must follow both lines. Because if we choose to follow, just like we've said, Babu Owino or Esther Passaris, and every day he goes giving pants, a sanitary towel somewhere, he posts. The next day is somewhere else. Esther Passaris or Babu Owino or any other politician will never post something negative about himself through his social media.
They control it.
But then we can only get the bad part of Babu Owino or the other side of Babu Owino through his opponents. Of course, to some point, they may tend to spoil him to some extent or propagate some propagandas about him. But then there is that one information that you can really, as an individual, authenticate and say, he did, even if he gave some mask to this school yesterday, but then from that school, he went out drinking somewhere and caused chaos somewhere. So we're able to get both sides of the leader that we're talking about. So it will purely depend on how you choose to consume the information from social media without taking sides too early.
Yes, Jacob.
Social media has really given these politicians a platform to try and showcase themselves in a way. But we must ask ourselves a question. As you said, for example, you're mentioning politicians here, Babu Owino. Politicians, members of parliament are elected to legislate first, isn't it? And so you ask yourself, much as you see so many posts made by Babu Owino, by these other politicians across the country, how many times have you seen Babu Owino speaking in parliament? How many bills, for example, has he sponsored in parliament so far, which is his main role? Okay, how many times do you see Millicent Omanga sponsoring bills in the Senate? How many times does she speak there? Okay, there are politicians I know, and I don't want to name some of the names here, but there are politicians I'm aware who rarely speak in parliament since they were elected. Okay, but they are accustomed to calling press conferences and speaking, and
they're very popular
they
out
actually
here.
cause a lot of discussion, debate, a whole week, a whole The whole time since they were elected, they have been calling press conferences. They will never utter a single word in parliament, but they are very good in speaking in Kiswahili in press conferences somewhere. And so they show us how good they are, how some people are bad, okay? But for the roles which we elected them to do, they don't do so. So unless we have a system, and that is why I'm saying sometimes social media can be so good, we also have to get information from their constituencies. Apart from what they are showing us, we should also expose some of the things they haven't done, okay? If they are showing us the things which you have mentioned, we should go and see the schools in their constituencies, the way they are. We expose those politicians using those social media. That is bringing up, that is taking them to account, okay?
That would be very constructive.
That would be constructive. As they show us one face, we should also bring about what is happening in the reality on the ground. If we don't do so, we are going to leave these politicians to play around with our minds so much. So that is why the freedom we have through social media, and as I have said, we can access information. No one can lie anymore. When you say that this is what is happening, these are schools are built, for example, in this constituency. People from that constituency can bring out the reality by exposing these politicians that don't lie. These are our roads, these are our schools. Look at the way our infrastructure looks like in this particular constituency. So we have a chance to use that social media very well, especially to deal with these politicians who are using it to masquerade as our saviors. You know, they have a way in which they want to use social media to run a narrative on how they are connected to us. In fact, they even use social media to post some photos on how they grew up as barefooted, how they do this and that, trying to connect with us, okay? So we must deconstruct them by trying to expose the reality of their work.
We should challenge them.
We should challenge them.
Okay.
Every time they post something, we should be there to also counter and put them to account. Of course, we should appreciate those people who are doing good work.
Okay.
We must be very constructive as we criticize, okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
And looking at the COVID-19 pandemic, we are experiencing the third wave right now with a surge of cases. Looking at how the information about COVID-19 first when it hit the country last year in March, and there was this whole propaganda. Is COVID real? Is COVID really in Kenya? And even from the government, nothing was very clear. And now given the social media platform, then there were all these stories that all these deaths, they're from totally different illnesses and not specifically COVID-19. So that information, the information was, it was dismantled in so many ways. So let's just talk about that, because now when we're experiencing something like a pandemic, then the flow of information on social media.
Okay, truth be saying is that we have different versions of the information being shared about the pandemic that we are currently in. On the arrival of COVID in our country, social media was used to some extent to create fear, and at the same time to sell another narrative which is negative to the truth. Because you notice that we are different people with different versions of what COVID is. Some would say you drink this herb and you get healed. Some would say you take Billiton and you'd heal. Others are different kind of information that we're trying to spread on it. So ideally, social media has played a very big role in the kind of information we have gotten throughout the pandemic period. Because on the other hand, you notice that very many people in the villages may not have gotten information on the availability of the vaccines. Of course, you have different vaccines across the world. People are able to get the information from social media and compare what is the right vaccine for me, which one do we go for, and day in, day out, Kenyans are hearing their views to the government through various platforms on what they would prefer. And I'm purely sure that though they may not go to public and say, we have considered this point from this person, but to some extent, the government is working on social media information that is being spread. For example, a few weeks before the second address by the president that took place on Friday last week, those who are keen on social media, Kenyans were getting worried on the kind of things we are doing. Many Kenyans called for the lockdown we have seen. Many Kenyans went ahead to call for the revise of the curfew hours. It was purely spread through social media. However, agreeing to the fact that some of the bodies mandated to do that were speaking also, but I am sure the government to some extent was compelled to that by the kind of the outcry that was in the public domain through social media.
Do you think then that the government should be more firm in the way it disseminates information, to give more strategic communication even as far as vaccine is concerned? Because there was a lot of fear from people if they want to take the vaccine or not, because they were not sure if, again, as the propagandas across the world, if it will cause blood clots. So then, because social media is a place where information is not controlled, do you think the government then should take a more firm stand?
I think the government itself has been failing to some extent in giving information. It has failed in some way. Or it has tried to project a certain style of doing things or way, or it has wanted us to believe in some one way. Since the time when corona first cases were announced in Kenya, the government has been having press conferences through the Ministry of Health and trying to give us information, okay? And many people who don't access mainstream media were getting this information through social media. They could actually listen to the minister speaking live, okay? And so the minister was either issuing more threats, okay? Either he was misinforming the country, okay? But through social media, we have had a chance actually to come out and find out exactly what was happening during the whole story. And you know, the minister kept on saying that things are going on well from the ministry, they are working very hard, they're doing this, this and that. But it is until when we had KEMSA Heist, and when we realized what was happening behind the whole story. When the minister was very candidly speaking to us every day, things were happening behind the curtains. And so through social media, we were able to see, we were able to get information as to what was really going on. And through people who were taken to account, either appeared before the Senate for purposes of interrogation, we were able to follow live and hear how people were doing things and how they ended up, our country ended up losing billions of money. So I think the government, and you see, you have said that the government has a role to play in terms of either encouraging people, for example, to take vaccine. But you see, sometimes some government can also confuse. You have heard from the top leadership, for example, when the president was being asked, why are you not taking the vaccine? What was the reason they were giving? Or why did it took so long for him to take the medicine first, the vaccine? When the deputy president was in an interview somewhere, he said that they had passed a cabinet resolution that they will give priority to frontline workers. Just a day after he spoke, the president was addressing the country to say that he took the vaccine and he ordered the cabinet should take the vaccine. So you can see there is that confusion sometimes. You don't know whether it was first a cabinet decision, it was not a cabinet decision. There is a division within the government.
So as you conclude, then social media, how then can we control it so that it cannot affect our politics negatively? Very quickly.
We may not really come to a conclusive point on how we can control social media. We can only send a message to the young people, being given the fact that they are the ones who are so much using social media. So we can only say that let us come to our senses and go back to the basics on what we spread through social media. Because if we lose it this early, we may find it very hard for us to bring it back again. Because social media is really killing a lot of sensitive issues and at the same time bringing good issues. But if we focus so much on the negative part of it, we shall blow our country into proportions.
Yes, Jack, and whose responsibility is it, very briefly?
It is not only the responsibility of the owners of those platforms. As I have said, we have a role to play. We should take initiative as ourselves to try and seek the truth about what is said in social media. We must try as much as possible to try and look for the truth about what is said. And we must also ensure that we respect people, the reputation of people. We must observe and respect the Constitution as it is, that we should not go against what the provisions of the Constitution say. Therefore, if we do so, we will all of us lead our country in the right way, especially when we're going to next election.
Okay,
we will try as much as possible to try and create a scenario where we are looking for the truth, and that even as we go to elections, during the elections, we must ensure that we seek the truth as about what is being said by politicians.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
The truth, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that is how we conclude today's conversation here on Bottom Line KE. We have been talking about digital media and its effects on the way we carry out politics in Kenya. With me on set has been Patrick Mwenda, who is a youth leader and political analyst, and Jaikan Sangwera, who is a lawyer and political analyst. I am Nancy Nalimu. Thank you so much for watching.